Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions, the mystery of the Green Children of Woolpit, medieval England's most inexplicable encounter. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. In the 12th century, two children emerged from a pit near the village of Woolpit in Suffolk, England. They spoke no known language. They refused to eat anything except raw beans, and they were green. Their skin was visibly, unmistakably green. The boy died shortly after discovery. The girl survived, gradually lost her green color as she ate normal food, learned English, and was eventually employed as a servant. She said she came from a place called St. Martin's Land, where the sun never fully rose and the light was perpetual twilight. No one has ever identified where that could be. The account is not a fairy tale with a single anonymous source. It was recorded by two independent chroniclers writing within decades of the event, William of Newburgh and Ralph of Coggeshall, neither of whom dismissed it. Both treated it as a genuine and puzzling occurrence they could not explain. For 9 centuries, historians, folklorists, and scientists have proposed explanations ranging from nutritional deficiency to fairy lore to Flemish immigration. None has been universally accepted. The girl's description of her homeland, underground twilit, separated from a luminous land by a great river, has never been matched to any real place. The two Green Children of Woolpit remain, by any measure, one of the strangest documented incidents in medieval history. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the landscape of modern documented mysteries, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Human perception is fallible. This is not an insult, it is neuroscience. The brain does not passively record reality, it actively constructs it, filling gaps with expectation, inferring causes from insufficient data, and storing memories that are reshaped by subsequent experience. Eyewitness testimony is the weakest form of courtroom evidence precisely because what people see and what actually happened frequently diverge. Sound can cause visual hallucinations. Infrasound at specific frequencies can produce feelings of dread, the sensation of a presence, and even visual disturbances. Sleep deprivation, stress, and hypoxia can generate vivid experiences indistinguishable from waking reality. All of this is relevant when evaluating modern mysteries. Many apparently anomalous experiences have prosaic explanations rooted in human neurology, temporal lobe activity, hypnagogic hallucinations, shared social expectation shaping perception. A willingness to consider these explanations is not dismissiveness, it is intellectual hygiene. The brain is capable of generating extraordinarily convincing experiences that have no external cause, and yet, the perceptual explanation has its limits. It cannot account for physical evidence, radiation burns, landing traces, electromagnetic interference on electronic equipment, or anomalous readings on calibrated instruments. When multiple independent witnesses, separated by distance, report identical details, mass hallucination strains credulity. When physical measurements corroborate subjective experience, the neurological explanation is insufficient. These are the cases that demand another look. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns, in science, demand explanation. With that foundation in place, Let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding the Green Children of Woolpit, medieval England's most inexplicable encounter, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. The Green Children of Woolpit are recorded by two independent medieval chroniclers, William of Newburgh, writing around 1190, and Ralph of Coggeshall, writing around 1220. Both accounts describe the same core events: two green-skinned children found near wolf pits at Woolpit in Suffolk, speaking an unknown language, refusing all food except raw broad beans. The existence of two independent near-contemporary sources makes this unusually well attested for a medieval anomaly. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the children were discovered near wolf pits, deep trapping pits used to catch wolves, common in medieval East Anglia, from which the village of Woolpit takes its name. They were brought to the household of a local landowner named Sir Richard de Calney. The boy refused most food and became increasingly unwell, dying within a short time of their discovery. The girl adapted more successfully, ate regular food, gradually lost her green skin tone, and learned to speak English over several years. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this. And that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. The girl, after learning English, described her homeland as a land underground where the light was always dim and greenish, separated from a brighter, luminous land across a wide river. She called it St. Martin's Land. She could not explain how the children had come to emerge in the pit at Woolpit. Medieval scholars connected St. Martin's Land to the fairy realm of contemporary folklore, where time moved differently and ordinary food was not eaten. No geographically identifiable location matching her description has been proposed. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation. But the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, the green skin color is the most physiologically discussed aspect of the account. Severe chloroses, a form of anemia caused by iron deficiency, produces a greenish pallor in affected individuals, particularly visible in fair-skinned people. It was a recognized medical condition in medieval and early modern Europe, sometimes called green sickness. If the children had been subsisting on an extremely limited diet in a confined environment, chloroses could plausibly account for their unusual skin tone. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of the historical date of the incident is uncertain. The event is placed by scholars between approximately 1135 and 1173 AD, during a period of significant social disruption in England, including the Civil War, known as the Anarchy, 1135–1153. This period saw significant displacement of populations, including Flemish wool workers brought to England by Henry I, who faced persecution under Stephen. Some researchers connect the children's account to this displaced Flemish immigrant population. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. Ralph of Coggeshall's version states the girl later married a man at King's Lynn and continued to speak of her homeland with apparent sincerity throughout her life. She reportedly said her people were Christian and that they had been crossing a field when they heard the sound of bells, the bells of Bury St. Edmunds according to some versions, and suddenly found themselves in the pit at Woolpit, unable to return. The mechanism of their arrival was never explained to anyone's satisfaction. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the Green Children of Woolpit, medieval England's most inexplicable encounter. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that Paul Harris, writing in Fortean Studies in 1998, proposed that the children were Flemish immigrants, possibly orphaned when their parents were killed during anti-Flemish persecution in Suffolk, WH. Had been living on an extremely poor diet, causing chloroses and the green skin tint. Their unknown language was Flemish rather than any supernatural tongue, and St. Martin's Land referred to Fornham St. Martin, a village in Suffolk. Critics note the Flemish hypothesis requires substantial circumstantial filling-in absent from either chronicle. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the literal reading of the children's account, that they emerged from an underground realm accessible through the wolf pit, places the event within fairy lore traditions widespread in medieval England. The girl's description of a twilit underground land separated from a bright world by a river matches the structure of fairy geography in contemporary folklore with striking precision. Folklorists, including Jeremy Hart, have analyzed the account in this tradition, though no mechanism for a literal underground world has been proposed. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that the allegorical or literary invention hypothesis holds that one or both chroniclers embellished or invented the account as a moral or theological exemplum. William of Newburgh, in particular, was a sophisticated writer capable of literary invention. The objection to this explanation is that two independent authors separated by decades, writing in different institutional contexts, both record the same core event, making coordinated invention or coincidental parallel invention significantly less plausible than a genuine shared source in an actual occurrence. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree, that is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the Green Children of Woolpit, medieval England's most inexplicable encounter, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes the existence of two independent near-contemporary sources, William of Newburgh, writing around 1190, and Ralph of Coggeshall, around 1220, is the strongest evidential basis for treating the account as recording a genuine event. Both authors were serious chroniclers who recorded other verifiable historical events accurately. Neither dismisses the children as imaginary. The details differ slightly between accounts in ways consistent with independent sources drawing on common local knowledge rather than one copying the other. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented green skin consistent with severe chloroses from iron deficiency anemia is medically plausible if the children had been subsisting on an extremely restricted diet of beans and little else in a confined underground environment. The girl's progressive loss of green coloring as she began eating a varied diet is consistent with recovery from chloroses. Medieval physicians were familiar with the condition. The physiological explanation for the skin color does not, however, explain the unknown language, the underground origin claim, or the mechanism of their emergence. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed the linguistic evidence is ambiguous but suggestive of the Flemish hypothesis. The children's speech was described as incomprehensible to all present in Suffolk, but neither chronicler identifies the specific language or records any sample of it. Flemish wool workers were present in East Anglia in large numbers during the 12th century, and their dialect would have been unintelligible to most English speakers. If the girl later successfully learned English and integrated into local society, her linguistic adaptability is consistent with a human child from a neighboring language community rather than a supernatural origin. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the Green Children of Woolpit, medieval England's most inexplicable encounter. Now, we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. Paul Harris's Flemish immigrant hypothesis, published in Fortean Studies in 1998, remains the most widely cited rational explanation in academic and popular treatments of the case. No physical remains, DNA, or documentary evidence exists beyond the two chronicle accounts. The tale has generated continuous scholarly discussion across history, folklore, and literature. Brian Horton analyzed it in Haunted Spaces, Sacred Places. Kevin Crossley Harland included it in his survey of English folklore, and it has inspired novels, operas, and children's fiction. The two independent chronicle sources make it more robustly attested than most medieval anomalies. Whether the explanation is Flemish immigration, nutritional deficiency, or something genuinely unexplained, the Green Children of Woolpit remain one of the most discussed anomalous events in English medieval history. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the Green Children of Woolpit, medieval England's most inexplicable encounter from the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Green Children Woolpit ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process, and the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.